Beautiful ignited souls. I am Crime Queen, your partner in crime. The crime of self-love, the crime of breaking the law of silence. And that is particularly in terms of sexual abuse, sexual trauma, sexual assault, but more so or foremost sexual healing. It is perceived in our community, and I say in our community because sexual abuse is so prevalent in the Black community. Now, I have had videos on my interpretation of Black, which is not like what we generally perceive as being of color, the skin tone and that sort of thing, but I think Black is a function. And it is said that all colors come from Black, so that in itself tells you that there is a construct, or Black is a construct by which all levels and all kinds of creativity derives from. This is what my interpretation is. It is like a milieu. It's like when it is said, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep in the Bible. You are talking about it's like stirring something and all the water and all the dirt and everything that you can think of comes alive. It's like a soup. It becomes like mud where you have to let the water pause for a while, and then you can see the ground or make distinction of the different elements or different makeup of what that water consists, and which is everything. So this is what I call Black. It's when you are not quite able to identify or make a clear distinction in that moment or in any specific moment, for example. And so we also have this as the numerical terms, the same as white. And so let me not get too muddled up or confuse you in my own distinction or explanation. But sexual abuse is so prevalent that it almost it's come up to the surface now. It's really come up to the surface, and there's like an explosion is happening in our faces right now. There are two things happening in my observation, just like I have had to be, not have to, but I had chosen to do so, to be writing or sending people notes of condolences. It's almost like, people are running for a bus, but it's like united souls who are ready to go on to the next realm, or who are ready to pass. They are running to catch whatever ship that they go on, where we are not able to see them in the physical sense anymore on this plane. And so the other thing that is happening is a ripened stage of what has happened, where too many people have concealed the secret of sexual abuse in families, among families. I spent 5 years roughly or so in St. Lucia from 2010 to 2015. And from one who has gone through the experiences, it sickened my stomach to know that my neighbors were pimping their children, and the excuse was that to get money to send them to school or to give them food, because people are not being taught to look for the answers that they need in another way. Where you face your attention is what you are going to see. If you are saying that there is no other way, then that is what you are going to see. If you are going to see, well, there must be another way, you are going to find the other way to at least give your children whatever it is they need. When you are pimping your young child, your young daughter who is only 12 or 13, because you need money to send them to school, not realizing you are sending them to a school that is destructive. You are sending them to a high level of an education, or that is not an education, it's a destruction. It is destructive to expose your child to any form of sexual connotation that is disturbing to their psyche, to their bodies, and which is an intrusion. And even if it means over time that child comes to enjoy or like what has been introduced, because oftentimes that is you have to try and find a stage or a state of equilibrium to balance yourself, to at least lie to yourself until you convince yourself, well, that's how it is. This is too often we have heard of this, that the perpetrator and the person who's been abused begin to identify themselves in relation to the perpetrator. There's been studies of psychology on this. So that happens with someone who's been abused, whether it's a wife, whoever it is. After a while, you become so powerless. You feel so powerless that you feel that it's the only way. You have not allowed yourself, or often the environment or the state or whatever experience that you have gone through has not allowed for a way to see anything different. It's like I come from a family of 14 children, and I am the fifth child of 14 children. And my mother, of course, had a one-time relationship or one-time encounter with my father, which I got this on both sides, and I was the result of that action. I suppose I was meant to be here. However, it is that she remained in a state of powerlessness for a long time, where he then felt that it gave him the right to do whatever he wanted to, having children or wherever else he did, conceiving children with his workers, and that was fine. It wasn't fine in the sense of saying that it put a smile on my mother's face, but it's the sense of powerlessness. I had this conversation, and where she said, well, what else could I have done? I already had 4 children. How, you are meant to marry and depend on your husband to help you, and there were so many other reasons given why there was she stayed in that relationship and continued to have, was it 8 more or 9 more after I did, and do the maths because I'm the fifth and there was 14, so 9 more children. And even in that relationship of having being able, because there was not an excuse that they weren't having sex, or my wife's not having sex with me, so I've got to go out. No, she had proof that she bore 9 more children. So that is quite something. And so there were a few things I want to speak on in this context, because there is a brother in the conscious community, conscious community or YouTube is proliferated with his name, which is giving him more energy than perhaps is necessary right now, and so I won't even bother to mention his name. But there are people who are defending this person, this individual. We should wait till the courts have claimed justice. What really concerns me here is that, especially in again, the black community, even in the essence of my meaning of black, is that there seem to be no kind of reasoning or equilibrium in an argument when it comes to sexual abuse. I shouldn't say there is none at all, because there are people who see what I see, but it is that either you should have reported it, or why didn't you say something when it happened to you how many years ago or whatever? Why now are you talking about it? And when you talk about it, oh, we should wait. Even if all the signs and the language and all other inappropriateness is explicit, we still, it's like we have been programmed to cover up, like, planting something and you pour and you cover up the seed with dirt. And that is exactly what I mean when I say I'm going to use the word black. It's like because black in essence of a color, it conceals, it protects, it's that incubator. It holds on to everything. And so this is why I feel we need to get out of this black-white mentality to begin with, because white in itself, it's another thing. When the light is like a light shines so bright, it dazzles your eyes and then you can't really see what's beyond. It's like looking at the sun rays, the brightness. That means, again, you can't really see. So there is a sense of protection to some extent, but it's on different spectrums. So, by the way, if you are interested in knowing more about how I derive at those conclusions as well, because I do numerology on spirituality, and I have discovered quite a lot in the scriptures that has been concealed to us, because again, we have been a lot of people have been just too in some cases lazy to really delve. We are so gullible in just taking what is given without exploring for ourselves to find out. This is where it's like how the picture of it's like, imagine there was a step that was flexible, that you could squash it together, or you have a piece of paper that you fold like what we call knife plates. And this is what it is. But we have to educate ourselves so we can extend that step, that flexible step, which is what takes us onto higher realms of understanding and so on. So there's so many things in my mind that I really want to explore on this subject, because I'm feeling it's like I really want to let people know, and there is a divine intelligence that is available to all of us, really, that is calling us. And this is why there's that awakening. This divine intelligence is calling us, and like I had a video, Mother Earth is calling us, it's our Mother Eve is calling us and saying, come home. But we had not been listening to Mother Eve. In numerology, Eve equals 14. Is it by chance that we have a 14-year-old in the middle of this case that is proliferated in the social media with sexual violence? That means, in my understanding here, is that this child has in some way embodied the role of Eve, where Eve is shedding of herself to, it's like a sacrifice. It's like a sacrifice. Now, this is not conscious, but it's like a sacrifice saying, come home, people, wake up. And you do not have to wait to see the semen, smell it, to know that this thing does exist in our communities. it is said that 1 in every 3 women would have experienced sexual assault of some sort between the age of from teens 16 to onwards, or even before 16. In fact, I had the statistics in Britain, for instance, but especially in the black community as well. In fact, let's see if I can get this. Especially in the black community, we have such a high rate of sexual abuse, which I would say a lot of it is the result of people not breaking the law of silence. Or even when they do, there is no one to say, I believe you, this is what I'm going to do. Or even when you do find someone to believe in you and take the story like my story when I was 13, 14, about the same age, is that a young man tried or attempted to rape me, and I was very traumatized. One of the terrible traumas that I went through, I was very traumatized. There was I had a cutlass in my hand. He was trying very hard to get it from me, and I felt, oh, I could see myself in pieces if I did let go of this thing. So I fought for my life with every bit of breath and every cell in my body and in my bones. I fought for my life that day. My aunt, who was responsible for me, sued the guy. He was proven guilty, but that was only the start of the trauma or prosecution that I endured afterwards. The police had me giving a statement on my own as a minor, and they made fun out of me. They said, oh, you must have liked it, didn't you? You liked it. He did penetrate you. He did have sex with you and you liked it. Why don't you tell us? They made fun of me. And in my naivety, I had not realized that that's what they were doing. They were having fun. Now, the other thing that happened is the young man who tried to rape me, he was my neighbor. He lived right opposite where I live. And so all the female, his sisters, well, I thought they were his sisters. Later on, it's only 40 years afterwards, I realized they weren't his sisters. He was an adopted son or something like that. And they persecuted my life. They cussed me every day. They called me a liar. They called me a dog. They called me a bitch. They called me pig. There was not one name that I knew at that time that they didn't call me by. So there is one reason, and that, in fact, I had not realized until much later in my adulthood, in hindsight, that I understood that that was the reason why other people were allowed to rape me, other people were allowed to assault me, other people were allowed to have their way with me. And even when I spoke, I was only again subjected to more sexual abuse. You come to a stage where you think that that is what you are meant for. That's what you were born to do. Just be there at service to another to treat you however they choose. Don't bother speaking the truth because no one's going to believe you anyway. How many times I was told this? And in our community, when you hear of a grown man walking down with being very loving with his 14-year-old, which on one hand we really should not ever have to be so how would I particular, there should be able to have a degree of trust, because knowing that on a level that every grown person should be looking out for a child, every grown person should feel responsible for a child. No, the child does not only belong to the parents, they belong to the community, and every adult having a responsibility to have a positive input in a child's life. However, this is not the world we live in. This is not, there are people who seem to have come into the world just to play the very part or the very role that they do, which is not a tangible, a nice, loving role. It's a destructive role. They play what we call the devil role. If the devil says, I dare you, I dare you. How much do you want to be healed? How much do you want to be whole? How much do you want to love yourself? And every time you make a step in that direction, he tries to block you. And you have to devise your own sense of creativity and alchemy to get through. And that would be your way of finding out that you are indeed co-creator with the universe. People, it is time for us to wake up. It is time for us to find healing. It's that I have discovered a healing, a specific healing, for instance, which is specially designed for sexual healing. And it's no wonder, because this thing is so proliferated globally. But not only that, as I say, as Black people, we are so subjected, and as far back as you can go, you will understand why and the derivative of that. You will understand the mentality, the conditioning. You will understand. But we no longer do we have to live in fear of thinking, oh, how else am I gonna manage? Oh, I need his 2 cents worth to help me. Even that help is perhaps eating away half of the money you get from Social Security or your cleaning job or whatever job you do, or your lawyer job, whatever it is that you do. He becomes often a dependent on you in that sense. And it's just the other thing that we, particularly female, we have grown to have that kind of pride that we think we need to have someone or some entity beside us. Just to say you have someone, what is that about? And those who are awakening now are also scared to go and find or trust that they can indeed find someone to love them implicitly, which you can. People, we need to it is disturbing. But it is also a time for us to celebrate, which I feel very sad for this 14-year-old and her family, because this is so huge. This is so I really try my best to convey in the way that I can to say again, it's about waking up and educating ourselves to the divine intelligence that is available to us, so we can have the strength and tenacity and courage and wisdom to thrive, to really thrive, and to be of a positive contribution that we could leave onto generations to come. And that means breaking the law of silence. By breaking the law of silence, it's like having a wound. It's bleeding. You need to apply some pressure, perhaps a bandage, but you will not leave that pressure and bandage on for the rest of your life. You cannot do that. You will have an internal infection, a cyst or something that will not, it just needs to have the right environment to heal properly. Likewise is sexual assault and sexual trauma. Sexual trauma is one of the worst crimes of humanity because it is touching on that serum, that sacredness, that has all potential for all creativity and life. And we are messing with life. What gives us the right to do that to another person? But there's the thing. This is the generational curse. It's just that thing that goes on from one generation to the next. Psychologist tells you, for instance, if you're pregnant and you're going through certain experiences while the child is in your womb, for one, the child is recording, or everything is being imprinted in the child as well. That's why it is good to ensure that you're as happy as you can while you are pregnant. Can you imagine that while being pregnant, for instance, like in my case, where my mother was feeling all guilty, still with her husband, having to meet her husband because, and to explain this is what happened. Yes, I had a one time and I realized that I am pregnant, and he does the thing that is seemingly decent to say, okay, before many people find out that you are pregnant by another man, I'm going to send for you up in the UK so you can have the child and everyone will feel it is my child. Great idea. But there was never a full acceptance of that child until days before he died and said, oh, I am sorry that I rejected you. And now that I realize that you have indeed made me proud. That's another story. But when asked of my mother when I was on my journey, or even before that, I started writing The Crimson Light, 2 volumes of The Crimson Light, because I felt a compulsion to do this reading, to go on this journey. And my dear people, ignited souls, as much as I felt I had done a great degree of healing, it wasn't until I was doing my writings that the penny dropped, so to speak. It was not until I started writing that I realized that this had happened in generations before me. That's when I picked up the essence of my mother's answer, that it happened to her. And I had heard that it happened to an aunt of mine. Then I realized it happened to all my mother's sisters. And I don't know for my uncles. But then again, those things happen and people are so ashamed that they bury that wound. The wound turns out a stroke, cancer, diabetes, all kinds of ailments. Because we bury those things. We have been burying them, hiding them. It's that game of hide and seek. You know, sometimes someone is hiding something. You don't know exactly what it is they are hiding, but they are hiding. You know, if you are a parent, you know when your child feels guilty. You don't even know why, but they think they have been caught and they go, uh-oh. And you are wondering, you play the game as if you know what they have been, what they are feeling guilty about, until you find out what it is. We have been hiding. It's like in my generation or in my time, you know, what if you speak out? I remember getting the biggest slap across my face from my mother, of course, because she was ashamed, but because when I found out at before 16, I heard my elder sister saying, oh, my father is not her father. I felt so happy because this man was not treating me really nice or lovingly. So I boasted to my friends about it. It returned to my mother that I was talking about her husband not being my father. So I got a big beating. I was on my knees and I got a beating. These are the kinds of experiences that we have that gag us, puts a plaster and a mask over our mouths, and we are asked not to cry, do not breathe out a word, and hold your head up high as if you were the cream of the crop and nothing can fade you. There comes a cycle, and our cycle is very wide, you could say. But the cycle it's like the two ends of the spectrum, like a chord, and you make that circular shape. It may take a long time for those two ends to come together, but they do come together and they do meet. And this is where truth pushes its ugly, well, not ugly at that time. For some people, it may seem ugly. For the perpetrator, it is ugly, but it pushes its head up to the surface. The ugliness, yes, it shows, it says, look at me. In fact, I did a poem which goes on to something like truth knocking at my heart's door, crying out loud, let me out, and saying, look at the state of this place. Look at me, I am clean, I am sharp. And, why do you think that I need to be in this place? Because all this deceit that truth has been surrounded by has not been healthy for truth. And truth is like a mushroom, or it has been mushroomed, if you like, with a fungus all around it. Yes, we look at the mushroom, it looks pretty or whatever, but this fungus, and it grows and it grows and it grows, until you have to see the reality of what is. Ignited souls. Ignited souls. There is so much in our community that we need to unearth. We need to own up. And it's not about black, white. It happens in all societies, but of course, predominantly in our society because of what we represent. It's a state of being. And that state of being encapsulates all there is. But somehow, we need to face that reality to be able to shine, to be able to create healthier lifestyles, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. It almost bleeds my heart because I have been there so many times. And of course, I understand the significance of what's happening on a universal scale, on a global scale. And people, of course, are still inclined to bury that truth in whatever fashion it may show. But let it happen. Let truth be seen for what it is. Whether it looks ugly or not, then we know what to do. We know what size of bandage is necessary and how, when to take it off and air it out and give it the right environment, give it the right remedies, so we can break the generational curse. This is not only about one person healing themselves. People think that what has happened in social media right now with this individual and the 14-year-old is something that is just It's a one. I don't know whatever people are thinking, but I want to emphasize this is a global message that we ought to now wake up. Wake up. We have been told that the forensics have confirmed the semen found on the young girl's t-shirt, whatever it was that she was wearing, but the evidence is there. And I keep saying a lot about the number 14, the 14 gods that we have discovered in the scriptures. This is what they are making their presence felt. They are making their presence felt. It's that truth has been hidden in the very Bible that we have been conditioned by, because people are seeing, they know that it's there. The leaders, they are not teaching it the way it is. They are putting people one against the other. Oh no, we shouldn't really embrace Hinduism because they have so many gods. Their gods is like saying they're infinite, 33 million gods. Then Genesis, the book of Genesis equals 33. Jesus died at 33. Jesus came from a generation of 14 generations, onto 14 of Abraham, onto 14 of David, on 14 and so on. And all these 14, we have, no one is teaching this 14. This is the representation of the 14 gods that have that culminates the two creations as left and right, good and bad. This is why you are now being told to go in quarantine 14 days. There is a deep intelligence that knows all this stuff. But we have been so conditioned and gullible and being critical towards others, instead of understanding, okay, well, if they are conditioned in that belief structure, perhaps there's something that we can learn from them. Perhaps they are representing a left hand and I'm the right, or perhaps they're representing the head and I'm the toes, or whatever it is, the different parts of the body. And it's the same teachings of there's in Corinthians chapter 12 or so, it's like they're different spirits but of the same spirit. The gifts of the spirit, they are different but of all of the same spirit. So when I saw that, why would I go having an argument with anyone else? Even the spirit that is happening right now is to teach us where we have gone wrong, so wrong. That is the spirit. It's like having an itch and you have your hand to scratch it. It's all part of it. And embracing what is as painful as it is, but let us embrace this truth. I watched a video, people are arguing about whether Kemet, whether Hebrew, whether Greek, whether this, whether pork, whether you eat pork, whether if someone wants to eat pork, let them eat pork. You don't want to eat pork, don't eat pork. Because sometimes, yes, as caring, we do need to be of sharing our intelligence or wisdom with one another, but we don't have to try and drown it in the other person's throat. Teach what you know, but still allow one to be, because you are doing what you are meant to do and the other person is doing what they are meant to do. We all cannot be on the same path at the same time. Otherwise, there would be one linear road and God knows it would just be horizontal, and where are we going? We couldn't see the next person at the other end. So, United Souls, I feel I may have to say more on this subject. It so happens, as I say, I do my videos intuitively, and I was not aware, as you may go on my YouTube channel on Crime Queen, and you will see that I have shifted my attention into healing, sexual healing. And I decided I was going to do my videos more on sexual healing, helping sexual healing, because and through my desire of to do that, the universe has opened to me, or has granted me in all my willingness and desire, a way of healing sexual trauma in 5 days. And even that, I had someone saying, oh, I don't think this can happen in 5 days. We feel it's so easy for us to absorb, perhaps have an injection, or have a tablet that's going to put us right, or have something else. We are very limited in I'm going to refrain from that. I'm hoping we allow ourselves the capacity to know that the times are changing and everything is happening on a different level. The universe has provided some energies to counterbalance itself with all the other things that are happening very speedily in our lives. And so this is how we have come with the Revolutionary Spiritual Healing Code. If you want to find out more about this, you can look me up on www.crimequeenthehealer.com. But this, as I say here right now, this is about sharing it's about encouragement to let people understand that we cannot keep hiding something and think that it's never going to be found. And when you hide something in the environment that you hide it, for instance, you can imagine if you hide something that is organic in some kind of corner and leave it there for a while, maybe a mango or something like that, what would happen to that after a month, after 2 months, after years? What would happen to that? We need to process those kind of informations. Anyway, lovely people, I am Crime Queen, your partner in crime, wherever I can help you in the art or cultivating the art of self-full love. Well, let's just get on this journey. As I say, united souls, we are the us on the us ship. Thank you for joining us, and do like and subscribe and share this video as I feel it is going to be beneficial. If you don't know someone who is in this kind of predicament, I'm sure someone you know is in this predicament, and perhaps I was going to say, we don't have far to go to find someone. Thank you. Stay ignited and united.